A New York City landlord feels betrayed by the government and the bureaucracy because his tenant refuses to pay rent and owes him $72,000, and at the same time, he's subletting the unit for a profit. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today. Once again, it's coming out of New York, and it has to do with the whole squatter issue again. And this issue keeps coming up because, you know what, it's a huge issue, especially in places like New York where the tenant protections are so strong that it could take months or even years to be able to remove a tenant. Now, in this case, this isn't an actual squatter situation. This person was an actual tenant of the landlord, but refused to pay rent for a very long period of time, yet the landlord is unable to remove the tenant from the property. Okay, so the person is a squatter, but not the squatter that, you know, just kind of came in with a fake lease like I've covered in other stories. So, you know what? I hate hearing these stories because this is the kind of situation that any landlord can, you know, be taken advantage of. You know, we've all fallen victim to it. And fortunately, in most places, we can get those tenants up out of our properties relatively quickly. But in New York, that's not the case, okay? And that's why we need to see a change in the law. We need to see a change in the law that makes it easier for landlords to remove tenants. I mean, there should be a law written, especially in a place like New York, that says, hey, the eviction process cannot be dragged out for months or years on end because the financial aspect of it means that landlords could lose, you know, a fortune. Okay, they could lose their properties due to the tenant not paying. So we have to get this issue resolved quickly. Okay, just like they say, hey, for court cases, you know, there's you need to have the court cases happening in a timely manner. That should be the law. Okay, so before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you believe that these kind of court cases should happen in a more timely manner? Okay, there should be a deadline essentially put onto eviction court cases where if there's a problem when they're not hearing these cases, or if these cases are dragging out for years. There should never be a case where you say, oh, well, this eviction case has been going on for 2 years. No, that should never, and I mean never, be the case. If a case lasts more than a few months, then you have a big problem, and you should realize, hey, a lot of these motions that the attorneys for the tenants are filing are frivolous. They're garbage. Okay, so anyway, let me get into this article. They talk about this specific situation in it. This article is coming from the New York Post, and it says, squatter sublets a New York City apartment while owing betrayed landlord $72,000 in rent. And they don't mention it in the article, but I'm pretty sure this is a rent control apartment on top of it. Anyway, let's see what the article says. A crafty squatter bilked his landlord of at least $72,000 in rent for his Lower East Side apartment, then made tens of thousands in profit by subletting the unit, the owner charges. For 3 years, computer programmer Thor Boucher hasn't paid a cent of his bargain rate $2,000 a month, 2-bedroom, 1-bath Essex Street pad, claiming he didn't have to because the building was noisy and shook, according to landlord Ed Yaw and Manhattan civil court documents. So when they mentioned the rent price right there, and they said, hey, this place is only $2,000 a month, but it's on the the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Okay, my thought was, man, you know, for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, that sounds awfully cheap. I mean, unless the place is under rent control. And that's what my guess is. I'm not saying that's the case, but, you know, I don't think they mention it in the article. The alleged freeloader had no qualms renting the space out, though, charging as much as $1,950 per room monthly since November of 2021 on platforms including Airbnb and Craigslist. So one thing I will mention is that New York, I did a video recently about how New York changed the laws on Airbnb. Basically, Airbnb is banned throughout the entire city. So I don't think that this tenant is going to be renting this place on Airbnb, you know, at least legally, okay? But here's the question, right? Let's say the tenant continues to somehow get this place listed on Airbnb. Is the city of New York going to come back and hit that landlord and say, hey, your property is listed on Airbnb. Here's the fines that we're going to fine you as the landlord for listing the property on Airbnb? I mean, I could see something stupid like that happening. Meanwhile, the landlord has been trying to evict this tenant and has not been paid rent. And I could see the city cracking down on the landlord as though the landlord is somehow at fault. But that's another topic. Let me continue. The system, it says, I feel betrayed by my politicians, the bureaucracy, y'all told the Post. The system needs to be fair because right now it's easily exploited, he added. Housing court is not functioning, so rent is optional. They don't have to pay, and nothing is going to happen to them. The man currently in y'all's apartment said he moved in October and confirmed he paid rent to Boucher, but declined to share how much and said he had no clue Boucher was bilking the landlord. And you know what? That may be the case, right? But you are being illegally sublet to, you are not actually a tenant, and the case only becomes more complicated the longer it goes on, okay? And all it would have taken would have been, hey, let's get this guy up out of there in a quick and efficient manner. Let's ban this guy from being able to list the place as a short-term rental. He's obviously a scammer, and using and abusing this landlord. And the only thing that I kind of disagree with in this from this landlord is he says that he feels betrayed by his politicians and the bureaucracy, right? Should have known better. Okay? Look up in New York City. 90% of the politicians up there are far left-leaning progressives who don't believe in property rights. And I know this. Okay, everyone knows this, and you're surprised. You're surprised that they don't care anything about your property or anything about you specifically. No, they're not going to fight to change the law. The only thing they're going to do is, oh, sorry for you. You're just a victim of a system that needs change because we have to help the tenants. That's what they'll say. Okay. They treat you like garbage, and here's my suggestion, right? Don't rent property in New York. This is, like, you want to see a landlord get driven out of business? Here's a good example right here. This guy could be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this nonsense anymore. This is ridiculous. These politicians don't care about me. They don't care that I'm losing money. The only thing they care about is making sure this tenant gets to live in my property for free for as long as possible. Not just for free. This tenant gets to make money off of my property while not paying any rent. Essentially, he gets to be the landlord and I get to be his piggy bank. Okay? I'm basically paying him to stay up in the place. Good Lord. Like you would think that this was, some kind of fantasy, for tenants, sitting up here. Oh yeah, I can make money off my landlord and I don't have to pay rent and I can't be evicted. Yeah. Well, that's the way the system in New York is set up. So they say here, hold on, let me scroll down a little bit in this article because they said, they talked about why this guy was able to stay so long without paying rent. And it said, and here's something that I've been talking about for the last few years since I created this channel. In fact, it says Boucher also applied in 2022 and 2023 to the state's COVID rent relief program, which effectively barred y'all from evicting his tenant during the application process. So as I've mentioned many times before, tenants were using the pandemic eviction moratoriums and eviction protections in order to basically freeze or pause or stop the eviction process totally, okay? Because there was no verification that these people actually were in need, that these people actually needed the help, that these people weren't scamming the system. And so scammers, people like this guy, they stepped up and they realized this and they took advantage of the system. And you know what? That's why I say there never should have been an eviction moratorium in the first place. Never. Not one day. If they wanted to help these tenants, they should have just started rolling out the rental assistance and never had an eviction moratorium. The rental assistance would have stopped the evictions on its own because then the rent would have continued to be paid for those tenants who actually needed it. But I'm not in favor of rental assistance, but I'm just saying that putting the eviction moratorium in place was dumb when they should have just rolled out the money to the landlords to make sure these people didn't get evicted. Anyway, interesting article. Another negative story out of New York City. I'm not surprised. I might be, doing an all New York week. It seems like this week is just, nothing but stories about New York. I got a video coming up about the good cause eviction protections that they are trying once again to force through in the state.